Right. Good after morning. It's almost after. I know. I think you freaked out for the people on Zoom, which I haven't. There we go. For the people on Zoom, and in a room with about 500 people. And I've got like a little microphone on, so there's hundreds of people in here, and they've just noticed my voice is coming out of the other side of the room, which I will talk about a little bit later on. Now, this website I put on, I use this in class and staff meetings. This is basically a question. Put my question on the screen. Devices, phones, Chromebooks, iPads, whatever you use. And when you type the answer and send it to the screen, it pops live on there. And as you can see here, I put a picture of something. Now, what do people think it is? Some people think it's a roll, it's a bat, it's a cob, it's a bread bun, it's a muffin. Does anyone know what the actual real answer is? The answer is it's a muffin. So that is the actual answer. So if you're from Oldham area, is that what you put there, Gemma? So if you're from the Oldham area, we call that a muffin. But 15 minutes down the road, it's a cob. Another few minutes down that way. So there's so many different names. This kind of gets lots of arguments going. But the answer is, just to be clear, it is actually muffin. Okay. Are we good? Because if you don't agree, I'm going to make this last for a really long time. Right, okay. Right, brilliant. And I'll show this website, and everything I talk about today, I use in my class. I might have even used yesterday, because I was, no, not yesterday, on Tuesday or Monday, and I'll be using next week. So, and David did say I've got to stay behind the lectern, which is very difficult for me, because I'm a bit like a big kid, basically. That's kind of my issue. Or, depending on how you think about it. Right, okay. Now, I can't get on my own, so here we go. There you go. Some people are disagreeing and sending some answers still. Okay, can't get out on my own. There we go. Right. Okay. So can't get out of here. See, this is perfect. There we go. Come on. Drop down. There we go. Right. Whew. See, I'm talking about technology and how easy it is to use, and I'm having issues. But I'm doing this on purpose to show that you've got to power through these issues. Okay. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Right, so my name is Mr. Hunt from the front. That's my social media sort of name that I chose about like 4 years ago, and it's kind of stuck, really. So I post a lot of the stuff that I talk about on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn as well. But so those are my social pages there. But I've been working as a teacher now. I started in reception with my NQT year, with my reception, when they were about to my knee here, literally to my knee. So I had to be really careful I didn't nip them in the face. Then from reception, I went to year 6. I taught in year 6 in Bolton for 6 seasons. And now I'm in my 7th season of year 3 and 4. And I teach at Tottington Primary School, which is just outside Manchester. I've now worked 3 days. So I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in class. And on Thursday and Friday, I do lots of other things like go to Leeds, have the expensive coffee, not the other coffee that I should have had. And so I get to do loads of other stuff. Did you do that as well? It's nice. It is nice, though, isn't it? It's really nice coffee. You're missing out. But yeah, so my natural habitat is, as you can see there in my floral shirt, which is still available at River Island for £29.99. You can still get it. But that's my natural environment. That's where you'll find me on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And to be honest, no offense, guys, but that is my favorite place during the week. It's where I love to spend most of my time. Now, I'm going to start off with this lady. Now, this is my mum, right? I know it's a really bad starting picture. She hates this. This is my mum, Hazel. And I'm going to mention my mum Hazel because she's kind of a bit of a hero. And we're talking about my mum on the way up because me and Gemma car shared on the way up and got lost as well. But that's another story. So I talk about my mum because my mum has a growth mindset. And we call it in our family growth mindset. And we call it Be Like Hazel. Because basically my mum, she's gone from a Nokia 3310 about 3 years ago. And I'm not talking 15 years ago, 3 years ago. She's now got a clever phone, as she calls it, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But this video here, I asked my mum to record a video for HP, which we mentioned earlier on, because I was doing a presentation in the BT Tower, you know, the one that spins around at the top, talking about HP. And I told my mum, I want you to say, have a great day, everyone at HP. And this is the video that she recorded. It was via like Facebook Live.
Hello, everyone at BT. I hope you're having a good day.
All right.
Is that all right?
Yeah. Okay. Now, good, isn't it? Okay. Now the thing is, that was not the first take, you see. So it was quite a few takes to get to this point. So a bit of context. It's a Wednesday evening, and on Wednesdays, my mum goes with my auntie Hazel And my auntie, that's my Hazel, my own mum, my auntie Brenda, they all look very similar. My auntie Brenda, my mum's one of nine sisters. My auntie Brenda on Wednesday, they have wine and cheese night every Wednesday. And they go to the local like wine, they write notes and they have wine. So this was Wednesday night, so there's a bit of context. And she got it, as you can see, but she did get it wrong before she got it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the little bits in between. She didn't quite get. Now, she didn't know I was recording the other bits. And this could last for about half an hour, but I've just snipped it down. So it was with HP. So I was in a room with all these HP delegates. And I told her, I'm working with HP. And just for another bit of context, my Auntie Brenda is at the side trying to coach her. You could sign her up, my Auntie Brenda. She's really good. She colour coordinates purple, though, so I don't know whether that would work for you. So this is the...
Hello, everyone.
Here we go.
BT.
Everyone at BT. Put my glasses off. Hello, BT. What? All of bloody London's going to see this.
No, it's just 200 people in BT next week.
200, I told you.
Take your hand away from your head and Mel say it nicely with a smile.
Oh, I'm keeping in all the other bits because they're the funny bits with Auntie Brenda coaching you at the side.
Oh,
HP.
HP sauce.
No, the computers.
I don't know them.
What does HP stand for? It has to stand
Hewlett
for
Packard. Hewlett Packard.
Human Packard.
No, Hewlett Packard.
Human Packard.
No, Hewlett Packard.
Hewlett Packard.
No, that's close enough.
No, that was the closest I was going to get, but the conversation I had would last quite a while. But the interesting thing, I was in the room full of all these HP delegates, they thought it was hilarious, to the point that they sent her a brand new HP laptop. And she gets a new HP Spectre or the new HP laptop every single year. And then my mum just uses it for Google. That's all she uses it for. Okay, but my point is a growth mindset, and Gemma's going to talk about it a little bit later on. So my mum, like I said, went from a 3310, where you used to play Snake, and she used to send you a text message with no space. So whenever you got a text message from mum, you just have to figure out what the hell she's trying to tell you. And she's a nurse. So what she does is around the Chaddison area and the Oldham area where we sell muffins. What she does is she goes around and she administers medicine to all the ladies, and she still does it today. She's part-time, but she still does it. And she used to be paperless. She used to have a rota, and she'd sort of like cross it off where she was going to. And then she got a bit stressed out because she said, Simon, I'm really worried. They're sending me one of those clever phone thingies because we're going paperless. I don't know why. And I said, don't worry, Mum. Emails are really simple to use. And you would think that it's quite simple, but I had to explain to my 71-year-old mother what an email was and how it works, which is really difficult. And if you can do that to my mum, you can teach any lesson to any child ever, because it was really difficult. But she seemed to understand, and the way she understood it was, I said to her, it's like when you get an email, it's like when you get a letter posted to your house. It's very similar, apart from the fact it flies through there and it lands on your phone. She said, so it's like when you get it posted to your house. Yeah, she seemed to understand. I said, look, you even get like a little letter sort of icon at the top. And she's like, oh, okay, I understand. And she seemed to understand. I sent her an email and she got it. So perfect. So jump 6 months later. My dad usually works away through the week, but he was home early on a Friday. So I went to go and see him. We were sat watching Top Gear, having a brew, and my mum was supposed to be at work. And she drove up. She has a little Daihatsu van, like a red car. Looks a bit like Postman Pat, sort of, when she drives up. So she drove up into the porch. She's supposed to be at work. She got out. She stood in the porch area, got back in the car, and then drove off. And she didn't sort of say hello. She didn't say anything to us. She just came and gone. And I said to my dad, why didn't she sort of at least come and say hello? Because my car was clearly there. And he said, I don't know. She's supposed to be at work. And then when she came back, she blamed me for this. Basically, she said, I said, why did you come home and not come and see me? And she said, I got an email, Simon. I said, what do you mean? She went, got an email. So basically, because I told her it's like when you get a letter delivered to your house, every time for 6 months she got an email, she drove home to the porch area at the home to open her email, got back in the car, and then drove off again. And she did this for 6 months. And she couldn't believe that this is what she was doing. And it all made sense now, because work couldn't figure out why my mum couldn't make her where she was, because he planned it out for her. And he always wondered why she was late, and nobody understood, but now it all made sense. And now my mum can now use a clever phone. And she's also got, so in our family, we call it Be Like Hazel, because that's my mum Hazel. And there she's got one of the new Samsung phones, and she Facebook Live. She sometimes by accident. She's on Twitter. She's on Instagram now for some reason. I don't know. She's on TikTok now. She's been looking at TikTok. And she does all this thing. But my point is that my mum can go from like a 3310 at 70-year-old to being a social media influencer at 75. Then some of the things you've been listening to today, some of the things I'm going to talk about, we can need to take them on board and give it a try. That makes sense. Now, Gemma will go into this. Now, Gemma's over there. She works with works with Growth Through Mindset, and I've been working with them recently as well. And she'll talk about that in a bit more detail. Now, if anyone is interested, my mum does do stag do's, hen do's, and like parties and stuff. Dirt cheap, just give her 1 inch away. So drop me an email if you're interested in my mum. Right. Okay. So the website that I showed you right at the start, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump in and out of websites and things as we go along. If my mouse works, there we go. So the website I used is menti.com. Now, Mentimeter is a free website. You can pay for the subscription. You don't really need to. You can use the free stuff. You don't really need to pay for the subscription. And it works a little bit like PowerPoint. So I'm going to go back, and it's all cloud-based. So I'm going to click a new presentation. Now, I use this with my year 3 class, and I'll show a video of my year 3s doing this as well. So you click new presentation. I'm just going to write the word test here. Okay. And when you're on Menti, you get different types of question types. Now, the one I shared with you guys was the word cloud. So basically, when you type a word, and when you start the presentation, like you would start a PowerPoint, the more that word is said, the bigger it gets. So kind of like a Wordle. So it's really good for capturing vocabulary. It's really good for capturing ideas. So that's a word cloud. So you click word cloud, and you would write your question. I'm just going to write my question here. Just going to write here, and you can drop a picture in if you want. And then once you're ready, just hit present, and then the slide came up like you saw at the start, and the children can then answer. And then you can add a new slide, just like you would do in a PowerPoint. You can have different types of questions. So you've got multiple choice questions. You can type in what you think the answers could be. Open-ended is where you want the children just to send sentences to the screen. You've got scales, ranking Q&A. You can also use content slides, or say if you're doing like a PowerPoint presentation where you're just talking about something, you can add slides. For example, video. So you can add a video. And if I go to a YouTube clip here, you literally just copy and paste inside here. And you can, there you go, you can click the video. There you go, you put the URL there. You put the video in, click add. You can get the children to ask a question. And when you hit present, you won't have, when you hit the video as well, let's move that down. When you hit present, have the video clip there, you'll hit play, and you won't have that, do you know that advertisement you get at the start? That sometimes disrupts the lesson because it's like a game, or sometimes you won't have that. So hit play, and it'll go straight into the video. And you just control it just like a YouTube clip. So that's just a BBC Teach one. Now, then children can also send answers to the screen as well. They can, if you wanted a story starter, a video, or whatever you want the children to answer questions to do with that video, you can live send answers to that screen. And the great thing about Menti is all your results are saved. So you can export as a PDF. So, you know, sometimes when you capture information, or you have that post-it notes on a wall, and when you're saying, right, guys, think of a question to do with such a thing, they'll write something on the post-it, you go and put it on the wall, half of them will fall off, or you'll get a lot of repeat answers. This way, you can see, the children can see modeled answers on the screen. They can already see what's being said as well. And then you can export as a PDF, put on your working board. You've got some evidence. You've got something that the children have been working on in class. Now, that was a whistle-stop tour of Mentimeter, but sign up because it is free. And it's a really, really good website. And that's Menti. So, mentimeter.com. Now, this is my class from about 3 years ago. My year 3 is using that very thing. So just to show you, like I said, everything I talk about, I use in my class. So here we were speaking to a scientist about belugas, about captive belugas. And my children were sending their questions, what they would like to speak to the scientist, Kathy, what they would like to answer. And they're sending her, and it kind of rolls up and down. And then you can extend this page, and then once you've done, you can export it, and then you've got all this information. So again, these are year 3, so year 7-year-old children are able to easily use this, and it could be iPads, whether you use Chromebooks, whatever you use, and it works really, really well. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about something that I've been doing in my class and rolling out throughout school for the past 2 or 3 years now, something we've really worked on is the mobile classroom. So teaching practice, even though I'm kind of stood here just now, in my class, I don't stand in the same place, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, and it's something we call the unchained classroom. So unchaining the teacher from the front of the classroom. Now, this is my school. This is Tottenham Primary School. So we're just outside Bury, and it's been a fantastic journey from requires improvement about, I think, 7 years ago to good with outstanding features in our last Ofsted, and we're actually due one right now, and they're in the area as well. But we've got an incredible journey, and the reason for that is because of the senior leadership team, the staff, and also the children as well. So I'm just going to do a bit of a history lesson for them. So here is a picture from the Victorian times. As you can see, there's a teacher stood at the front, the children are in rows, all facing the front, and the teacher's using chalk. Jump forward a few years into the 40s. Again, the teacher stood at the front, the children in rows, and they're using chalk here. Let's jump forward a little bit forward. So now we've got the overhead projector with the acetates, the visualizer. Again, the children tended to be in rows, the teacher would be stood at the front, but the technology is changing, but the classroom layout's pretty much stayed the same. Then we had those projectors and interactive boards, so the technology jumped forward again. But again, children tended to be in groups or rows, all facing the front, and the teacher would generally be next to the screen, or the desk would be next to the screen. And then this is one of our year 6 classes about 2 years ago, where again, the screen's at the front, the teacher's desk, as you can see there, is just to the right-hand side. The classes are in groups, all facing the way. So basically, my point is that for about 200 years, the classroom layout hasn't really changed much, but the technology has completely changed. So those are my 2 main points. Should have looked at my next slide before I click. There we go. Right. So I looked into the research. So to make it more tangible, there's lots of research from Salford Clever Classrooms Associate. There's lots of studies out there that basically explain how the layout of your classroom can have a direct impact upon the learning of your children. Things like colour, things like where the desks are, things like your pitch and tone of voice, sound in the classroom, ambient sound, all different factors have a direct impact on the children's learning. So technically, you could lose on average about 16% of a child's learning, depending on how you lay out your classroom, and also as a teacher where you stood. So what we tried to do at our school, we had to try to think, how do we get that 16% back? Because it's 3%, we could use that and go right just by thinking about the layout of the classroom. So that was a clear evidence, and the difference in physical characteristics is about 16%. So I kind of got really in a rabbit hole about this, and I thought, well, what else is out there? So I looked at a study by Epson called the cheap seats, and this basically identified that desks at the edges at the back of the classroom using flat panel screens, quite cheap seats. So basically, there's some cheap seats over there. You guys are in the cheap seats here, but you guys have got the really expensive ones right at the front. So, and that's very similar to a classroom. Now, the teachers have noticed that depending on where you sat, does have a direct impact on the learning. Now, last year, I don't know whether you know, David's really, really into The Lion King. He's a massive fan of The Lion King, and we were going to go to watch The Lion King last year, a couple of years ago, but then lockdown hit, so we didn't eventually go. And when I looked at the seats, which seats do you think I looked at, being on a teacher wage and not being an entrepreneur like David? The seats that I looked at were the ones at the back, the ones, the red dots. Okay, and why did I look at those? It's because they're cheaper. Why are they cheaper? Well, it's because they're further back, they're away from the screen and they're away from the sound. So those seats there, they're £28.50. I could just about afford that, but David wanted to go for the £130 seats right at the front. So that's what we looked at. So in a way, it got me thinking about my classroom. Now, this is my classroom from 2 years ago, and this is amazing. And I asked a question when we had the coordinates and the axis at the bottom. And when I asked her a question, she did this, and you'll see this in a moment. And I asked another question, and I sort of recorded her answering the next question, and this is what she did. She had to stand up. And the reason why she had to stand up is because the kids' heads were in the way. She couldn't see. So she had to physically stand up just to see what was going on at the bottom of the classroom, bottom of the screen. So Maisie is in, we look at the layout of the theatre, Maisie's seat is worth about £71. Okay. Is that fair on Maisie? And now that means I've also got some children that are on the front here, £165 seats. But then I've got even more children right at the back that are on £52 seats. So my classroom is very much like a theatre. Depending on where you sat, you have expensive or cheaper seats. So then we look, and when you go to the theatre, you pay for what you can see, but you also pay for what you can hear. So if you've ever been to the theatre, if you're right at the back, you don't get the same sort of sound as you do at the front. And this is something that goes missed in classrooms. So I looked at classroom and audio behaviour. So basically, every classroom can sometimes stifle communication, depending on the background noise. So depending on sort of how big your windows are, if your school is directly next to a busy road, so the sound coming out inside. And as a teacher, you compensate for using your teacher voice. So do you know when you're not shouting, you're kind of talking louder towards the back of the classroom. And we compensate from that. And you tend to get a bit of a sore throat, especially around September, October time, when you realise you don't speak to people that much over the summertime. And then you end up with really gravelly, hoarse voices. So, and technically, the part in the brain, and there's a part in the brain that a child uses that you don't use until you're 16, sorry. So from the age up to 16, is you miss 25% of what's being said, but the part in the brain fills in those missing blanks. But you don't get that part of the brain until you're about 16, 17. So technically, you could have children in your classroom missing 25% of what's going on. So you're missing a quarter, that's like a full quarter of the learning potentially in the classroom just because they can't hear correctly. And I mean, quite often, when you get a board, you often think, right, where's the board going to go? But do you often think, where am I going to stand so the children can all perfectly hear me? And this is why I looked really deep into this. And so we use our teaching voice, which mine's kind of going a little bit now, actually. So I looked into the research about the disorders. Now, if there's loads of research out there about vocal disorders. So the number one profession with vocal problems is opera singers. The next one is teachers. So it goes teachers, opera singers. So if you're a teacher that teaches opera, you're pretty much screwed, actually. But we have 1 million vocal collisions every single day. Most, I think it goes then doctors, nurses, and then different professions. But as teachers, we have all these vocal collisions. And basically, what they say is that you lose teachers are off school because of illness. Also affects well-being and morale. And depending on if a teacher's stressed out, or they compensate with a voice and their vocal cords tighten up, which then you can get more issues. So we often consider the layout of the classroom to do with the screens, but we don't actually think about the voice as much as we should do. So what we use in our school is we usually use something called a Juno. So this is what I'm using here. It's kind of a little drop-down pendant microphone here. So all I'm doing is when I turn this off, you can sort of see the difference. For the people in the room, I'm just talking in my normal voice. But when I switch it on, you can everyone can hear me. And it really helps as a teacher when you're taking the register. I just take the register in my normal voice. Steve P. I haven't got Steve P. I just don't want to say their names. Steve P. And the morning, Miss Tom. So it means that wherever I'm stuck at my desk, if I'm at my desk, they can hear me at the other corner because my speaker's at the other side of the classroom, which is where the children didn't always hear me correctly. But because it's a mobile thing, so what I now do is I went back to my classroom and I completely changed the layout of my classroom. I got a second screen. So this classroom here is my classroom. I have 2 screens in my classroom. I've got one on this side and one on this side. And I'll get to the screens bit a little bit later on. But what that means is because I have the Juno, because of the microphone, I'm in and amongst the kids. So I'm in and amongst the learning as it happens. So I'm not stood at the front. I'm not chained to the front. I'm in and out. I can go around and see the children, see what's happening. They can all see they've all got really expensive seats and they can all hear clearly as well. And also for me, I don't have to talk really, really loud. I can just talk in my normal speaking voice. So that's what we did in our classroom. Then you might be thinking, well, Simon, we can't buy 2 screens. But what a lot of schools do have is they have old monitors. I mean, has anyone got any old monitors or old technology in your school that's sat in a cupboard with loads of wires used, like over the ICT room or a cupboard? You could use this. So what we did was, because I was lucky enough to get 2 screens because I was working with Promethean at the time. So they gave us an extra screen to do this study, and now we've rolled it out throughout the school. I got old monitors, and I sort of took the old monitor. I just used an old VGA cable, and we stuck them on the walls, and we just had an extra wire that went around and just plugged it into the main PC using a splitter, and we could replicate the same thing. So then we had an extra screen. So that's how we did it. And then in other classrooms, what we did was, when you get a new screen or when you replace a projector, the old projector gets thrown in sort of the cupboard and it's not used. But what you can do is, if you get a new screen, for example, installed in your classroom, you can keep the old projector there. You could just turn it to the side if you can, use a blank wall, and you can have 2 screens in your classroom, which is what we've done in some classrooms. We've got a wall here, And then there's the screen there. You're still using your main panel, your main screen, as your teaching device, which is what my laptop's connected to here. But very similar to here, that projector's facing that way, we would use that. So again, you can buy 2 screens, or you can use existing technology that you might already have in school. Okay. So my other point is that the teacher hasn't really moved in that 200-year period, tend to be stood at the front. But because of the technology, like the Juno, like mobile devices, like Air Server, like mirroring iPads and devices to screens, you don't have to be in the same position. So is a teacher the best position for maximum impact and engagement? Are teachers chained to the front? Now, one of the tools that we use a lot of, I used to use a lot of, is visualizers, the ones with like kind of on the stick there, and you kind of sometimes fall over, or you have to sort of get the correct sort of position. But we tend to have mobile devices, iPads, Samsung tablets with really good cameras, which are mobile, and using things like Air Server, and if you're in Apple School, Apple TV. And there's a free version called Let's View, which is very similar to Air Server. Air Server is about £12 or £10 for an educational license. Apple TV is quite expensive, but it is quite stable. Let's View is a free version, which you can just, as long as you're connected to the same network, you can have whatever's on your iPad device mirrored to the screen. So you've got a mobile visualizer that you don't have to stay in the same place. You can go over here, you can go over here, and I'll show, this is me in my classroom now. So there's my Juno just behind me there. I've got my screen here and my screen on the other side. And I'm teaching and just mirroring my device. So we're doing a maths lesson. And I'm just walking around the classroom, talking to the children, going a bit of column subtraction. I think it was just around about September time. And I'm right over here talking through things, walking around, getting the kids involved. And here I could just jump in just there. I saw a child make a mistake. He started subtracting from the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side. Well, because I was in and amongst the children, not stood at the front, I spotted that then, rather than when I got home and I was marking it and it was too late then. And then also what we do is we get the children, I give the device to the children and they do it the other way. So they talk through lessons. You can have a cup of tea in the corner while they're taking through the lesson. And we have a pass around microphone as well, because when children share in classrooms, and I actually asked my children this, I said, why do some people not put their hand up? Why do some people put their hand up? And so one of them said, I think it was Max. He said, Mr. Hunt, they can't hear me over there when I talk. And really, when you think about it, when children share things as a teacher, you can't always hear what the child at the other end is saying. So guaranteed some of the children that sat near you on the other side of the classroom can't hear what that child's saying as well. So what happens is children don't volunteer to put their hand up or to share because they know they can't be heard. And also some children just have small voices. They just have little voices, but giving them microphone, it takes that, it's a bit of a comfort blanket. We always say ice cream away, because you know how big ice creams are. So ice cream away, they put the microphone there, they have a table partner, and then they talk it through. So then the children are very much part of the learning as well. So because it's integrated throughout the classroom from day one, it's not a novelty. It's got to have an impact. I wouldn't use something just for the sake of it. Everything you use got to have an impact. For example, a pencil is a waste of time unless you use it correctly. It's the same thing with any piece of technology. Unless you use it correctly, it's not going to have the impact that you would like. Okay. So going back to the mobile visualizer, what we do, so I'm so used to pressing on tapping that when a cough, I just do that. So I walk around and I take screenshots of children's work. And then I'll use either the software inside the screen. So lots of screens you've got. So this is a smart board here. You can annotate over the top. You can annotate children's work, highlight, annotate, or you can use mobile apps and just annotate over the top, which is what I was doing before. So you can walk around. You can take screenshots of children's work and instantly give children feedback, give them model examples, say, right, what would you do here? And also children know that they can get their work shared instantly, and they're proud of the fact that their work might be shared. And also, it makes sure the ones that, my work might be shared here. I must make sure I do my utmost best. So it kind of works both ways. And it's such a powerful thing. And honestly, if you give it a try, it works really, really well. But you can also as well, if you think about if you're in a lesson and you're demonstrating a worksheet you want the children to do, you can just hover above and you can live. I sometimes get my children to hold it for me and I can live demonstrate something. If you're doing an art lesson, instead of all crowding around a certain area, just sort of seeing they're all doing this, I just get one of my stands, one of my children, to hold the iPad like this, and I demo, and they can all see what's going on. And they can also hear me because I'm talking through my microphone, so they can see everything that's happening. So it just really frees that teacher up. So basically, what I want you to try to think about when you get to your classroom is the teacher the best place for maximum engagement? And are your teachers taken to the front? And if they are, what could you do to sort of change that? Or just what could you look at this technology? Could you look at Air Server? Could you look at having 2 screens mirroring your device, or whatever the things I've talked about today? What can you do to make sure every child has that same learning experience as the ones sat right at the front, as the ones sat at the back? Now, this is Maze. She's the one that actually stood up to look at the bottom axes, and I asked her to explain what it's like for her now we've sort of changed the classroom. This is what she said. There's a couple of other children as well that speak.
So before we got the new screens, I was right at the back and I couldn't really see, so I had to move a bit to just see the screen. So now we've got the new screen. I'm right at the front, so I can see the screen really good and I don't have to move. Mr. Hunt has like a Juno thing, microphone around his neck, and it's easier for us to hear when he's talking, and then when it's time for answering stuff on your board, he has a microphone to pass around so everyone can hear you.
Our classroom is really cool because we've got 2 screens and everyone can see perfect. It's really good for watching movies, but don't tell Mr. Hunt.
So he didn't realise that was the day. It was around Christmas time, and you can pop a movie on. It's really good for, like, you got 2 screens, really good cinerama experience. And he thought I didn't know about it, and I did explain to him it was my Netflix account that Mrs. Bowley used. So don't worry about that. I knew it very much. He's like, "Did you know, Mr. Hunt?" I was like, "Yeah, I know everything that goes on in this classroom." But I just think it's really good to see that. Like, I'm talking about how it is for me, but how it is for the child as well. And you can see the way she's talking, how it's helped her. And this happens all the way throughout my classroom. And we've now rolled it out throughout the school in different ways, with extra monitors, with different systems in class. In fact, the Juno that I use, it does tap into, because we're an inclusive school for children with physical disabilities. So it does tap into hearing aids as well. So if you have children with hearing aids, it does tap into that as well. And now next door, one of the teachers next door, he hasn't got a Juno, but what he did, we've got one of those, those microphones you have, like, you plug in, like Britney Spears, that's the one. So he's got one of them. The only thing is, when I go out of the room, because it's infrared, it stops. When he goes out of the room, he's got to remember to switch it off. Otherwise, they might hear him go to the toilet or say something that maybe shouldn't have done. So we're trying to, as a school, I'm not saying we've got thousands of pounds, we've got 2 brand new screens, we've got all this technology. We make do with what we've got, and we try to make it work, and we try to replicate the technology that we have in my classroom throughout the school, because ultimately we're just trying to help the children, trying to make it easy for the children, for them to all be engaged and invested and sort of fully into the lesson, as well as the teacher as well. So what I was going to do, I was going to show the app that I use. So my favorite app in the world is Good Notes. It's basically just a note-taking app. So you've got Notability, you've got Good Notes, you've got different types of apps. The one I love using is Good Notes, and the reason why I like using it is because it's really simple. Basically, it's the video here. That's the video here that I'm using there. So you open the app, and I just mirror my iPad to the screen. So whatever I'm writing on my iPad, I'm writing on the screen. You have some basic tools. You have a pen tool, a highlighter tool, a rubber tool, and you have like a laser pointer. So that's the main things I use. But I can also take screenshots of children's work and annotate over as I'm walking in and around amongst the children. And it's my favorite app. It's about, I think, £3 or £4 on the App Store. There is like other Notability apps, there's different apps, but that's just the one I like using because it's really, really simple. Because what I was aware of is when I was rolling out for the other teachers in our school, I knew that I'd have some teachers that'd be like, "Oh, Mr. Hunt, me and technology, it's not my thing." I show them my mum's video and I say, "You can't really argue." And what I did was to explain how to use Good Notes and how simple it is. When we had the staff meeting, I didn't do the staff meeting. I got some 7-year-olds to explain how to do it. So I rolled in. There's 4 kids who rolled in, and they came right. It's dead simple. All you got to do is this. Max did it. He was one of them, and he took the staff meeting. So if 7-year-olds can do it, in fact, Matt said it's so simple even teachers could do it. That was his line. He really wanted to get in there, and he did. So then that's what if 7-year-olds can explain, as teachers, if we're telling teachers and talking about growth mindset, which again, Jen will talk about later on, if you're talking about growth mindset, but afraid to take risks yourself, it's kind of contradictory. because we're asking the children to do something, and we should do it as teachers as well. And if it does go wrong, which it does quite often, it's a learning tool. So, oh gosh, what guys, we've got a problem. My techie team, they'll come and help me out, or I'll send them to the next class, or well, you know, what can we do? Okay, that's fine. So then they see the teacher having a problem and doing something wrong, and then that's fine, because if the teacher can do something wrong but talk you through, openly talk about the problem, then so can children. So you sort of, you know, you're showing what the right steps are to take. So, and it's also really good for steps as well. So do you know when you get a bit of Christmas timber on? So if you walking around, your steps go up quite a lot. So it's really good. And sometimes I'll kind of keep walking around and like, Mister, get your steps up. I'm like, I'm looking around. But it's really good, because really, like, if you walk around the classroom, you do get those steps up. But yeah, so next I'm going to talk about is camouflage learning, because I've spoken for far too long. And so I'm going to get involved in a minute. So camouflage learning is something I do in my class. And what I try to do is I try to do lessons where the children don't really realize they're learning. They think they're playing games. Like gamified learning is also called as well. So has anyone ever used Kahoot before? So Kahoot's great, but there's also a new one that we use in class called Blue Kit. Has anyone heard of Blue Kit before? It's very similar to Kahoot, apart from the fact that you can take points of each other, and this is free as well. So it works very similar to Kahoot. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a go of Blue Kit, okay? I'm going to show you how it works. We're going to do some multiplication, some times tables. So depending on your multiplication knowledge, or won't actually depend on how you do, because you can actually steal points from each other. Now, if there's a winner, and at home is where you can join, there is a prize. David, where are people joining from? Because I'm just realised I've just going to post this if someone from like a different country wins this, different countries. But there is a prize, and this is the prize. Okay. There's not glue sticks. We're not made of money. But it is a book called Delilah Rose, The Bogey Princess, which is a really deep and meaningful book about a girl that's called Delilah Rose. It's my daughter, so I've written this book. And the reason why I've written this book is because we're having a chat about what we want to be when we're older. And one of the children said to me, Mr. What do you want to be when you're older? Which I thought, gosh, it's a really deep question. I said, well, I'd like to write a book one day. And Chloe said, well, Mr. You're always telling us we can be illustrators, authors, scientists. You're telling us this all the time, and then why don't you do it too? So that was a challenge. And because of that, I've now written a book and I go into schools and I talk about bogeys like at least once a week. So this is the prize. So here we go. So I'm going to get the Blue Kit ready. You can join on your phone or your device. I'll talk it through as I go through now. We're going to do a couple of minute game. So Blue Kit, there it is. So you create an account, free account, and you can create a set where you can just type in your own questions, or you can discover sets. So already created questions. So I'm just going to put multiplication. I'm going to hit enter, and there you go. So I'm just going to use this one. Okay, I'm going to use this existing quiz that's already here. Okay, I'm going to hit this one, and I'm going to go to. I'm just going to go to host. Now there's different games. And we're going to do Gold Quest. Okay, we're going to do Gold Quest. And basically, when you answer questions, you get coins, but you can steal coins off other people throughout the game. So I'll get the code for you in a second. There you go. I'm just going to do just a 2-minute game, just for a quick game here. Is you go to play.bluekit.com, enter that code and put join game, or you can just scan the QR code at the top. There you go, fee's already in. There's fee played before it's fee here. Nice, fast. There you go, you choose your little character, and then when it hits start, you can play the game. There you go, we've got 15 people already. I'm going to give you 10 more seconds before we start the game. Okay, anyone else desperate to join before I hit start? Here we go. has a little game to play. Here we go. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So you answer questions. You select a chest. You get 1 of 3, and you collect gold. And you can take gold from others. So you look at the leaderboard. You can steal their gold. And I'll talk about how this works really well. You say 7 minutes. I'm going to do it as 2 minutes. I didn't change the time. Okay, go. So A is just the top, just for alphabetical, that's why. Okay, so Harriet's made a good start with 100 gold coins. But Josh just swapped with A, that's so there's a lot of stealing going on here already, I quite like that. A lot of stealing. Jen is now top spot, so still Jen's gold if you're there. Jess has now got 340, but Sarah took 15 from Gemma. So you steal when you get the option to steal. You need to get some questions correct and then you can steal some questions. Right, 1 minute left. I'm going to give you 1 more minute. Currently James is now at the top. Rachel just took 78 from Gemma. That's quite mean. It's quite a lot of gold there. Harriet's now first place. It's got 50 seconds to hold on, Harriet. Harriet's back to the top with 3,000, though she's 1,000 ahead, just over 1,000 ahead there. But then Josh is now at the top. Okay, I'm going to give you the last 25 seconds before I skip to the end. All change. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to skip to the end now. So, sorry guys. So, Harry was second. Is Fee? Give Fee a round of applause. Is Fee in here? Is that you, Fee? Right, okay, right, Fee. So I will, congratulations, Fee. I will give it out. There we go. Do you want your prize, Fee? You can read this to that. Now, if you've ever played Kahoot before, what sometimes happens if you play a lot of Kahoot is the children that are good at that subject or do really well tend to win. The good thing about this is it swaps all the time because you can steal coins. And so it's really good because it's not the same person that wins all the time, so it's different people. Now, those questions, you can put minutes, you can put it as 2 minutes through, you can have an hour. I could have just played actually from how competitive you were. I should have just hit play for an hour and left it as that. But you can create your own questions. You can get the children to create blue kits. I've had my class to my blue experts, as we call them. So that's my blue kit experts. So we create our own questions. So that again, the children are taking ownership of the learning they're doing. So they replicate what I do in the class and they create their own versions. But it works really well. And there's lots of different games. The crypto hack is their favorite because you create a code name and then other people, if they can guess what your code name is, they can steal your Bitcoin. So you can still, so they really like that one. And they do add lots of free games as well. And again, if anyone's in from Blue Kit, does anyone work for Blue Kit in here? Good, because you don't have to pay for the paid for, but it's not worth it. Just use the free version. You really don't need to pay for the paid for one. And actually, there's a maths teacher that won, which is, I don't know whether that should be allowed, but she's giving me an eyebrow here. I think it's definitely allowed. You've done that before, haven't you? Okay, so that's camouflage learning. And as you can see, in year 4, we have the times table test, the multiplication test checker by the end of year 4. So I do games like this, Blue Kit, different times tables, multiplication games to get the children just to practice their times table recall. And to them, they just see it as that, well, we're playing, Miss Duncan, can we do a Blue Kit? But basically, they're doing times table recall. Miss Duncan, can we do a Blue Kit? They're doing a bit of grammar at the end of the week on a Thursday or a Wednesday afternoon because they just see it as a game. So it's a way of just sneaking in that learning without the kids realizing, okay, I'm just going to jump to the 5-a-day principle about because we're an inclusive school now. There's lots of children have different needs, and what we have to try to do as teachers remove different barriers, like with the layout of the classroom, but using existing technology to remove some barriers. Now, so this. I'm sure you might have seen the 5 principles before. But basically, I'm talking about using technology with the 5 principles, but it's not like a standalone. You can use technology for all those other things here, like I've spoken about earlier on, like about scaffolding, flexible grouping. Using technology can influence all those different types of things. And what I am going to share is the accessibility tools on an iPad. So these are built within an iPad for children to access learning. So some people just don't know they're there. So I've been to schools and I said, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And they said, oh, I didn't realize that it was there. And it's sometimes just highlighting that these things exist. And it doesn't matter how old your iPad as well, as most of them, even I think our 10-year-old iPads that we have still can use accessibility tools. So one of the accessibility tools that my children use is notes. So this at the back of the room, I've got 4 children that have got diagnosed dyslexia, and we have different colour papers, we have different things to help them. And what I use for them is I use the Notes app. So that's the free app in your iPad. And what they do is when we do some creative writing, I'll do some writing, they just speak directly into the iPad their ideas. It types up on the screen and they can write down what they see. Because what I found was, like this is Ari here. She has some amazing ideas, but she has a barrier of like, I'm struggling to sort of write it down first, like write it on the whiteboard, then again, she's doing it twice. So this way, she has these amazing ideas. So what she did was I asked her, she, instead of using the word gargantuan in her writing, she would go back to big, because she can spell big, but you want as a teacher for them to use gargantuan. You want them to use this ambitious vocabulary. So now she speaks directly into her iPad. It's modeled, the correct spelling is modeled for her, and then she can write it down. Because what she also used to do is when she used to write down on her whiteboard, because she was writing it really, really fast to get her idea down before it escaped, and she wrote the paper, she then struggled to read back her writing that she's just done here. So that way we sort of, it gets rid of that. So, and if you're an Apple devices, it's Notes, but you can just use Google as well. You can use Google the same thing. So you can use Android devices, just Google Notes as well. So this is her doing it. So this was on Tuesday this week. So we were doing some writing. So if you look there, that was just doing that. And we're doing some creative writing about a river going through a forest. So she's just talking directly into the iPad. Her ideas are there, and she's writing it down. This is Fizzy. This is called Fitzpatrick's her surname, but I call her Fizzy. I give them all nicknames. So that's Fizzy. She's just doing her writing there. She sometimes screenshots it because she sometimes struggles to write it down. And one of my other children on the other side, Louis, he's doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing as well. And any children I use, by the way, on videos, I have consent from parents and stuff to use these. So any of these children that we use, we do have consent. So all the videos that you've seen. So this is Louis. Now, Louis is a very reluctant writer, but since he came to our school around about November time, and since he came to our school and since he's been with us and he has a device there, it's really unlocked all his imagination because he has some wonderful ideas, some wonderful imagination, but it can unlock. And now just using that simple technology Notes, it'll unlock that. Another one is white noise. So again, you have these tools. There's a white noise tool within the iPad, and basically, so white noise can improve focus, concentration, but some children can find it distracting. It's dependent on the child, but it does really stress. And with Harry, he struggles if there's other things going on in the classroom. We tried the ear defenders, it didn't work for him. But then we tried the white noise and that did work for him. And in fact, this is kind of me explaining how to use it. So in this video, you go to accessibility tools or in the menu in your iPad, accessibility tools, and you scroll down to sound, audio, and you just click background sounds on, which is just in the middle there. And you can choose your background sound. This is the river sound as well. So there's lots of this. You've got dark noise, bright noise, river. He prefers the river, because he just likes the sound of the river trickling. So when he does some writing or handwriting, which he's doing here, he automatically gets his iPad when he feels like he wants to sort of tune out. He'll click it and then he starts his handwriting. So then he's now doing what he wants, is really focused on what he's doing. And then when he's really focused, he does his best and he can just do this automatically. And this is fluid throughout the classroom. So I've got 2 children that do this. And then you can see at the back, those guys are the ones that use they're doing some creative writing at the back. But this is natural now, and this works, and we've rolled this out throughout the school. And I'm talking about this actually. Do you know the 500 words competition? BBC relaunching it. They're coming in a few weeks to film in my classroom. This happening because I've been working with them and creating some content for the relaunch, which everyone get involved. It's really good, and they're looking for judges as well. So if you have to be a judge, it's really good fun. So that's white noise. Okay, now I'm just going to jump to my daughter. This is Delilah, the Bogey Princess. And don't worry, she's not had hold of that book. So This is a true story. This is not trusted, but so we're just gonna. She was in nursery here, and I have my device, and what she's doing, she's subitizing. So this app, Little Digits, it's free if you have a Clever Touch board. It's free on the Clever Touch store. You don't have to pay for it there. It's on Android and Apple devices. So basically, it'll ask you a number, and you just put the amount of fingers on the iPad. So it'll say 4. You put 4 fingers on the iPad. It'll say 10, or it'll say 6. Add 3. You put 6 fingers, and then you put 3 fingers. So this is Delilah demonstrated it. She was just about 3 here.
We got club 6.
4. 2. 1. 4.
4.
10.
And so this is again, so it's in reception, our children come in sometimes, they're subitized, they're putting their hands on, they're just playing with number, they're just having to go with this technology on the iPads. And also what we did when we got to Key Stage 2, you can change the language to different languages. So you can put it Spanish, you can put it Italian, German, different languages, and then children can do the same thing, but it's in a different language. I was going to try to do some Spanish then. But we can do the same thing. So it'll say cuatro, you go, boom, they put your 4 fingers. It's the same thing, just by changing the language at the top. Okay, I'm going to get a bit musical now. So I am jumping between. So has anyone heard of Incredibox before? It's incredible. So have you used it before? It's really good.
I've seen you use it. Yeah.
It's a really good website. Basically, you use it. You can lay music on. I'm going to have to give it a go because it's well cool. And if I just get a bit too involved and play with this by myself, I do apologize. Right. So Incredibox. So you can. It's. Show you again. You can go web-based or app-based. You can pay for it, but the web-based one is free. There you go. Let's just go to try web version. There you go. And it's drag and drop. So you can do this as a class. You can get the children to come up. They can do it individually, which I've done with my class. They do make music individually. You can talk. So you've got different types of music here. You've got Little Miss. These are the ones that are free. The ones at the bottom are paid for. These are the ones you can get on the app. So let's go to Sunrise. Okay, so, and then you've got these characters at the moment. There you go, just loads up. Go. So it's drag and drop. So you've got the green colors are all sort of the bass, the beats. So it's all beatbox. It's the bass at the start. Then you have some different layered sounds. You've got 4 different categories. This is like the singing and the vocal. So let's go for the headsets. You can see. There you go. So we've got the bass there. So it's in beats of 8 as well. So if you're into music, it's in beats of 8. So I'm going to choose one. I'm going to go to this one here. I'm going to use the blue headphones. So you layer on top. And you can see the blue bar going underneath. It counts you in. There you go. And what you can do is, if you don't want that sound, you can drag it back down. Or if you wanted to hear that by itself, you can just hold it over the top so you can hear that individual voice there. I'm going to add some more now. If you'd like to dance at home or here, it's completely up to you. Add some extra beats. And what you can do is you can really play around with it, and you can record your music as well. You got to put some clothes. And just layers on top. So if you don't like the sound of it, there you go. So you can count the beats in. Put some clothes. You got to put some clothes. And you can get rid of them. so I didn't want to finish like halfway through the. And then and there's different, and the kids honestly they absolutely love this. They're literally creating music. So what we did was there's different styles of music. I said, right, we're going to do some writing. Let's do some creative writing about this. Right, I want you to try to make, as you read it out, I want you to create a soundtrack that goes with your story. It's like, oh, let's do that. So there's lots of different versions, and you can change the different styles. And it's just the apps, like I said, the app's paid for. I think it's about £3, but it's just really good fun, and you'll find yourself later on having a go having a go on yourself as well. So in fact, Gemma, on the way back, if you want to create some music for the car, that'd be really cool. Okay, right, I've almost finished, David. I'm going to try to finish bang on time, which is very difficult for me usually. So I was going to share some augmented reality stuff and the app CNAI. I haven't got time today, but if you look at CNAI, it's free and it was developed by Microsoft. Okay, and it's for children it was for people with visual impairments, but I use it in education because what I do, if you take a screenshot of someone's handwriting, it then types it for you, it tells you what you can see. So what we do in school is we go, right, I tell them there's a bloke over in Microsoft that waits for us to take photographs of your work, okay? And when you take a photograph of your work, if he can read it, he'll type what he can see. So the handwriting, to try to make the handwriting neat as possible, because the guy in Microsoft might be able to read their work. So you scan it and it goes beep, and then it types it. And then I was like, oh, it can read it, it's read it the other side. It also does things like when you take a picture of, say, a basic item, you take a picture of, say, I don't know, a box, it'll go, boop, it's a box. And we said, the guy in Microsoft just said that's a box. Why don't we up-level his sentence? Okay, so it's a beautiful box with a rose petal. We can up-level his writing. So we always say we're going to up-level his writing, because it's really, it's not made for education, but things like that can be used for education. And I'd love to show you, I could spend, and I've shared it with you before, haven't I, David? It's fantastic. It also guesses your age as well. That's a good one to use in the staff room. When I showed the teachers this, I said, right, and then we had teachers going like this and going, do a different angle, and we tried to make the head teacher look really old by just trying to snap him as we walked past. So that's just the fun side of it. Right, I'm going to finish up, but I just wanted to, I know I've kind of chucked loads of random stuff at you. But this is just some of the stuff that I use in class, and I used Incredibox last week. There is Blob Opera is very similar to Incredibox. Have you seen Blob Opera? It's really good. So you drag operatic singer, and you mess with blobs, and I'll show you that again. I'll get too excited about it. But you move these little blobs, and it's very similar to Incredibox. Now, what I'm going to finish off with is this video. Now, this video is about. So I post a lot on social media, and a company called Bright Vibes are an organization that posts positive stories on social media. And they said, can we use some of your videos and snip it together as a positive news story? And I said, yeah, of course. And again, every child that we use, every child in the shop, we've all had consent for. But this is about primarily a boy called Jamie. He's in the middle just there, second from the right. Now, Jamie has autism. He came into my class 4 years ago now. Yeah, 4. Kind of lose 2 years with like lockdown, don't you? So 4 years ago, and he struggled with communication and he struggled to be engaged in lessons. But I noticed that he loved technology, and he was like me, but a small version of me. And he loved the technology, and he loved really getting involved in stuff that I was doing. And it turned out by using this technology and he was amazing. He's actually an amazing actor. His confidence grew. So at the start in September, when I got him, he used to sit underneath tables and struggle to communicate and get involved in lessons. By the end of it, by January of the same year, he was presenting on one of the stands at BET alongside me. I was alongside him, as it turned out, because he was really confident. He got really involved. And then the year after, he did it again. And the year after, he was on one of the main stages. So he went from struggling to communicate to being me, his sort of partner, and then he's gone on and he's now in secondary school. But his journey kind of started from my class, and that's because of technology and the stuff that I've kind of mentioned today, and other stuff that I could spend honestly all day talking about all different types of things. But you've all got homes to go to. So I'm going to finish with this video here that kind of explains the stuff I've been talking about in my classroom.
Hello, my name's Jamie, and I've got some very important information for you.
How old are you?
8 years old. Usually I wasn't that confident before,
Right.
But
okay.
now I'm really confident because I'm like all over YouTube and the internet and everything. We're a very creative class and we use technology to enhance our learning. I mean, take a look.
I get really excited, but then again, so do you lot.
Wow.
Pretty cool, eh? Do you like school?
Yeah.
School rules, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I just thought that's a nice one to finish on. Let's say bang on time, 1 minute afterwards. But thank you very much for listening. I know I kind of flit around and get too giddy and stuff, but that's what I'm like at home and I get in trouble. In fact, when we said what am I said I'm basically the third kid at home. That's me. But thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me down there, and thank you for spending your time to listen to me at home and online as well. I appreciate it.